Well, a very good evening to you from California wine country. My name's Andrea Robinson. I'm a master sommelier and very proud California wine country local since 2004, and really excited to welcome you to this LCBO California Wines event focusing on curated California and some of our fantastic produce of California wine country. We have a wonderful lineup of wines to talk about, as well as two amazing California vintners. But before I introduce them, I want to give a shout out to all the moms, because my Mother's Day flowers have held up since Sunday. And so all of you moms who celebrated Mother's Day, welcome. There's no better way to celebrate than with pouring a glass of California wine. And so all of you who've joined us, whether you joined us through the QR code from the curated California picnic box, or have found us on YouTube or through the social links, thank you so much for joining us. And we're excited to have you here. And I want to welcome our winemakers. But before I do that, I just want to say, please do pour a glass of California wine and be sure to enjoy it responsibly. This is a collaboration between the LCBO and California Wines, and we want you to enjoy and do so responsibly. And we'll talk about that great wine box in a second. But before we do that, this is also a special night because it's an opportunity to raise funds for a very important cause that we all care a lot about. And that is California Wines is partnering with Second Harvest tonight to help raise funds. It's Canada's second largest food rescue organization, which rescues fresh, unsold food items from retail, restaurants, supermarkets all across the supply chain, keeps those perfectly wonderful foods out of landfills, and allows us to protect the environment that way, but also to repurpose those while they're fresh to people in need. And so we can really provide immediate hunger relief for Canadians from coast to coast. And that's really, really important. So we'll talk about the California Wine Box, but let me just mention that to you right now. It is a fantastic collection of very special wines here, 6 very special wines, 2 whites and 4 reds. And it's part of a wonderful curated picnic pack. It's an online exclusive through the LCBO. And for every one of these that's sold, California Wines is donating $5 to Canada's Second Harvest fundraiser. You can also go to secondharvest.ca/calwines to make a donation. But I would encourage you to jump on this really quickly, because that picnic box, there are very few of them left. So this is your opportunity to gather those up. It's $115 Canadian value. So there's a lot of great value in there. And it's a great way to kick off your summer picnicking, celebrating, and kind of staycationing until you can get here. Wine country, California wine country education season, because every time you get a chance like this, like we have tonight, to taste California wines and compare them, you're going to see a lot of really, a lot of diversity. And I think that's one of the many things that we're really proud of here. But I'm going to say a quick shout out to our guests. We have 2 of the jewels in our crown of California winemaking here tonight. That is saying a lot, because there's so much pedigree with our great winemakers here. But we have 2 of the top. So we have Randy Ullom from Jackson Family Wines, and specifically he's the wine master for Kendall Jackson. So we'll be tasting Randy's, basically his pride and joy, and California's pride and joy, Kendall Jackson Vintners Reserve Chardonnay. So hey, Randy, and welcome.
Hi there. Thank you very much. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here with you and with everyone.
Super excited to have you. And then we also have Glenn Andrade. He's the Senior Vice President of Winemaking for Trinchero Family Estates. Just waving to you from down Main Street. We're about 7 minutes apart. Hey, Glenn.
Hey, well, good evening, and it's an honor to be here.
And I will just say that a big part of what's really part of the soul of California winemaking is our great family-owned wineries. And so Jackson Family Wines and Trinchero Family Estates are 2 of the truly gold standard, platinum standard, diamond standard, whatever is the highest pinnacle we can get to of family wine companies. And what that means to California wine is not only great wines and great quality, but so much more. And we're going to explore a lot of that. Now, just for a second, let's jump into, we've got a cool map of California and its wine regions, because you know where we are and you know you're going to make a beeline here to visit us as soon as you possibly can. But what you're going to notice about this is, and this is a really great map of the wine regions, part of why California is so great for wine and so great for such a diversity of wine is the climate. Yes, we get a lot of sunshine, but we also have this amazing air conditioner, right, called the Pacific Ocean. And so you can see that we have these beautiful coastal growing zones and then a few really great inland pockets with some very old vines. That's a little teaser of what's coming up in the future. And so from really north to south, there's a lot going on in terms of what makes California great for wine and great for wine country tourists and wine country wanderlust, because the truth is we all love the sunshine, but we also like the air conditioning when we get a little warm. And so we've got both here in California. So super excited about that. Now let's talk for a second about the curated picnic box, because this is a really special lineup. I told you it's 2 whites and 4 reds, and it really covers, you just saw a diversity of latitudes and all of this when it comes to the geography of California wine growing. Well, you're going to be able to taste the diversity of what can come from that with this picnic box. We have a Pinot Grigio, a Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, Cabernet Sauvignon. Those are all, of course, the classic French grapes who have really made themselves at home in California. And then some other cool stuff just to round it out and show what California can do very, very specially. So this picnic box, just to remind you, it's only on the LCBO website. So you do have to jump in and get going on that as soon as you can, because it's really been selling well, which is great for our second harvest fundraising. But it's also here today, gone tomorrow. So you got to make sure you get in on the action. So what we're going to start out with, we're going to taste from lightest to heaviest. So we're going to start out with our whites, of course, and we're going to start out with our lightest bodied white, which is the, excuse me, the long shot Pinot Grigio. So California Pinot Grigio. And when you're thinking about grape varieties, Pinot Grigio is going to be on the leaner, crisper, more elegant, more refreshing, delicate end of the spectrum. And part of that is the grape variety itself, but part of that is that it's classically not treated with oak. So I'm going to talk about this for a second, but Randy, I know both you and Glenn make Pinot Grigio. So when you're talking about the fruit profile, I'll start with you, Randy. What are you looking for? I'm looking for leaner, tangier, crisper fruits, but tell me your thought.
Oh, for sure. We actually put a little bit of some of the like Viogniers and things in, just a couple of percentage points of those for more floral tones and more perfumey tones to kind of bring out more of the aromatics in the Pinot Gris. And then it is, of course, all stainless steel fermented, because you want to maintain that crispness, that vivacity, vivaciousness in the glass. And that nice acid level too. So you're trying to bring a little bit more to the table, but it's got to be fresh, clean, crisp, and exciting.
Exactly. And Glenn, the Trinchero family's roots is Italy, right? And Pinot Grigio is the Italian pronunciation, the Italian spelling. And this grape is, of course, really classic to most parts of northern Italy. So when you're producing Pinot Grigio for the Trinchero family, you kind of have a little bit of that in the DNA. What are Randy talked about the stainless steel. Tell me about the taste profile that you're looking for.
So for us, I mean, it's a little bit different in California, but yeah, we're looking for a lot of that leanness, the crispness. We really like that lemony, citrusy notes, and just kind of make it simple. It's not meant to be an overburdening wine whatsoever. It's meant to be a crowd pleaser, and it's one that you gobble down and you go to the next bottle.
So I got to say that lemony citrusy that you talked about, like right now, my taste buds are just like, it's like neon, right? It's really scintillating. And I love for people to think about, when you're thinking about white wines, same is true for reds, but we'll start with the whites. Think about your fruit flavors on a spectrum from lean and tangy and crisp to lush and ripe and exotic, right? So your lean, tangy, and crisp are your citruses and your crisp green apples. And that's exactly what I'm getting with this beautiful wine. It's very refreshing, very delicate. Drink it super chilled. And let's talk about food for a second, because when you've got that great acidity, then you have all kinds of opportunities. And we're getting into, the perfect season for peak of season vegetables. And so I'm talking like salads with vinaigrette, maybe some nice tomatoes that are, once they come into season, with a little bit of finishing salt. Because when you put acidity in wine with acidity in the dish, like a vinaigrette salad, they actually tone each other down. So then the flavors of the food pop out more, but also the fruit in the wine pops out more. Then the other thing you can think about when it comes to pairing here with all that acidity is that it's always a great condiment. So it cuts through richness and saltiness and fattiness. So if people are fans of the classic charcuterie plate, for example, with salamis and prosciuttos and things like that, that would be a great pairing with Pinot Grigio. Either one of you, have I missed an amazing pairing that you guys love? Randy, anything?
No, I think you nailed it quite well there. I mean, it's just so refreshing.
That's good.
It's great on a summer afternoon on the porch.
Exactly. When you don't, non-cerebral, and Glenn, you said it, non-cerebral, and you guys press some nice olive oil, so that would also be a great pairing, right? Just a little bit of bread dipped in some olive oil.
Absolutely, and I love the idea of fresh tomatoes with some mozzarella with a little bit of that balsamic and a little bit of that fresh olive oil right over the top. What a great pairing, and what a great summer afternoon kind of starting to your evening.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. All right. So everyone, if you're not already starving and we have 5 wines to go, then you haven't tuned in soon enough. So if you're just tuning in, this is our curated California. We're talking about the fantastic picnic box that has been put together between California Wines and the LCBO, and the opportunity for every one sold to donate $5 compliments of California Wines to Canada's Second Harvest, which is immediate hunger relief by preserving and reclaiming fresh food and repurposing it to immediate hunger relief. So we've just tasted the Long Shot Pinot Grigio. We're going to move into the Kendall Jackson Vintners Reserve Chardonnay. And I want to say something about Chardonnay. It's a classic grape variety to the Burgundy region of France. However, and when we taste Glenn's wine, we're going to be tasting Cabernet, which is a classic grape variety to the Bordeaux region of France. So 2 important French grapes that have traveled, put down roots, and are incredibly successful in California. And I will just say, in tooting our horn a little bit, it's been that way for a while, because in 1976, California Chardonnays and Cabernets were pitted against French Chardonnays and Cabernets and won in a blind tasting by French judges. Now, what does that mean? It doesn't mean that our wines are better, but man, have we come a long way, baby, and the wines are on par. So what I love about this whole story is that you can get world-class examples for a great price. And Kendall Jackson Vintners Reserve Chardonnay is really, truly one of the benchmarks in that style. So Randy, this has been your baby for a very long time. And since you were 12, no, I'm just kidding. But you've been doing this for a while. And as we jump up into the Chardonnay, it's a totally different color difference. You can see this even on my screen. You can see it's really pale straw for the Pinot Grigio. Then we've got this beautiful golden color for the Chardonnay. What gives, what causes that? Take us into the glass.
So anyway, a wonderful Chardonnay. It will be a little bit on the yellow to golden side, and the color comes from basically two aspects. One, we like to get our grapes really, really ripe, and we like them to be a golden hue when we even pick them. So that's in the skins, and then some of that transfers into the wine. The other part of that golden hue also comes from the barrels, because we barrel ferment pushing 95% of the juice in real French and American oak barrels for that fermentation in the barrel, but you're pulling some of the color from the barrel out into the wine also. So it's a two-pronged approach. But what's really cool about this wine, as Andrea mentioned, California's got this wonderful climate, especially along the cool coast of California, where you have the ocean, you have the fog rolling in almost every night, and then when the sun comes in the morning, and it takes a little while for that fog to break up and break away, and then they start smiling even brighter and growing. But that means that they're not hitting their full photosynthetic effect until mid-morning or late morning. So that also means that it's going to be a very long growing season. And the longer it takes to get a grape ripe, the more flavors you're going to have, the more natural acid you're going to have, and all things great and wonderful. And again, along this cool California coast, when you start up north from where we're centrally located in Sonoma County, but go up to Mendocino, there's like a bell curve of flavors that you get in Chardonnay, and that would be more of the crisp green apple tones. And then you roll down to the Russian River, and in Sonoma County, you get your ripe apple tones, and then from the Carneros region in Sonoma and Napa, also you get sort of pear tones, pear oil. Then you roll down the coast a little further to Monterey, and you get your lemon and lime tones, your citrine tones. And you go further south to Santa Barbara, and you get all the tropical tones, pineapple, mango. And there's a beautiful picture of some of our vineyards down in the Santa Barbara area, rolling hills, and you know, they always say, you know, vineyards that have a great view, like on those hillsides there, make wonderful wines. But so you throw all that together in your juice, and then you ferment it in the barrel, and that builds out that mid palate, you know, really rich and round. And then, you know, to make wine, you got to throw in a little yeast, and that yeast, it eats the sugars and makes alcohol and CO2. And then all of a sudden, when all the sugars are gone, poor little guys die and change their name and fall to the bottom of the barrel. And there you have what are called yeast lees. And we like to stir those. And when you stir those on a monthly basis, it adds that sort of silky essence to the mid palate and side palate. And then we go through another fermentation to get the butter. So you've got now all those great fruit flavors you can smell and taste, and the butter and the richness. And it's going to have a really long, lingering finish that just beckons for another sip.
So this was fantastic because that's all. That's all in a day's work. But you really hit on two aspects of Chardonnay that I think people really resonate with, and you explained why. And I just want to hit back on that because you talked about the range of fruit flavors, because we do have everything from the lean and tangy to the lush and ripe tropical fruits in Chardonnay, especially with, as you described, California and the diversity of climates up and down the coast that you're able to do, so that you get those, you have all those piece parts to play with into your blend. And then you talked about the secondary fermentation, which is a geeky term, malolactic conversion or malolactic fermentation. Some people say mallow for short, and that's really a handy way to do it. But it puts that buttery component. It doesn't mean they add butter to the wine, right? It just gives this byproduct of fermentation that makes it smell that way, right?
Yeah, it's completely natural. But it's amazing to get all these different flavors just from the grape and the butter tones and the toasty tones, and it's just it's remarkable what Mother Nature gives you at the end of the day.
It's really, really special. And you talked about stirring the lees. I know that's super traditional and classic in the mothership region of Burgundy of France, and to give that texture, because it's not grape juice, it's wine, and part of what makes wine great is that texture, that creaminess for Chardonnay. So let's get to pairings, because we've got all this fruit, we've got some great acidity that wakes up the palate. We've got this buttery. So, of course, what I did is what I always do with California Chardonnay, which is popcorn. And it truly is a great pairing because you got the salt, which contrasts the acid in the wine, but then you've got the butter with the butter. You've also got the toasty with the toasty from the barrel. So that's my simple go-to for movie night and life. What are some of your favorite pairings with this style of Chardonnay?
Oh gosh, well, I look forward to November and December every year with great anticipation, because that's when the Dungeness crab season opens on the mid to northern coast of California, and the Dungeness crab is just so rich and lush and wonderful. It's a match made in heaven, actually. But then if that's when that season's over, you've always got crab from other places, or the Alaskan king crab, or you go off to New England and get some Maine lobsters. So the Chardonnay, because it is rich and buttery and round and lush, I mean, not over the top, but very, very, very nice and neatly put together, goes wonderful with that style of shellfish.
Exactly. Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, you'll have to get over on this side of the hill for my husband's crab cakes. Speaking of that, from Dungeness crab.
Oh,
There's almost no cake to it. It's almost pure crab. So that's our
perfect.
that's our next sighting for sure. Glenn, any favorite pairings for barrel fermented, that round creamy Chardonnay style?
Well, you guys hit on my favorite already. Crab cakes just is the top of the line, but I also like it with pastas with white sauces. The acidity really cuts through it nicely. It very much complements it. So both of those are great go-tos for me.
Fantastic. So I'm going to mention one other thing because it's easy, and once you try it, you'll be like, "Wow, this is so cool." Grilled cheese. Okay, so but make it a nice grainy bread so you get the toasty. Grill it in a skillet with butter and maybe either a nice aged cheddar or an aged Gouda. Grilled cheese with this style of wine all the way. Give it a go. I promise you'll love it. So we're going to move on to reds. But what I want to say is, if you're watching, please don't hesitate to throw some questions at us. You can put them into the YouTube chat, and they'll make sure that they get ported over to our little interface where we're coming to you from. So we're here to answer questions. But let's jump to our red wines. We're going to start out with typically the most delicate of the classic red wine grapes, Pinot Noir. This particular one, Meiomi, has quite a bit of roundness and richness to it. But Pinot Noir, the grape, also is another French classic, hailing in this case from the Burgundy region of France. So it is the red wine counterpart to Chardonnay in the Burgundy region. And it loves a cool climate. And so it loves lots of parts of California because, again, of that great air conditioner known as the Pacific Ocean. And so we've got Meiomi Pinot Noir. And I think a lot of people really discovered Pinot Noir. And you guys tell me, I'm sure you've seen the movie, but it became quite the star of the silver screen with the movie Sideways. And I'm just going to ask both of you, I'll start with you, Glenn, when that happened, were you among the many wineries who found that your Pinot Noir sales kind of exploded?
Yeah, absolutely. There was two things that were going on for us. We had plenty of Pinot Noir, and all of a sudden the request for bulk samples came in, and the price just kept going up. And boy, all of a sudden it hit us that it was like, uh-oh, that's what happened. And all of a sudden our Pinot Noir programs took off like a rocket. And when we had plenty of Pinot Noir, we were out looking for Pinot Noir like everybody else.
Right, right. So it was the movie Sideways, and of course, as you know, Miles, one of the main characters, waxed poetic about Pinot Noir, and along with some of the other characters in the movie, and it really did change the marketplace. Randy, one of the great Pinot Noirs for the price has always been the Kendall Jackson Vintners Reserve. Did you go on allocation with that wine and kind of run out?
We're very fortunate. We had a genius, Jess Jackson, managing our business and our company. He passed away, a number of years ago, but he had this vision, and I don't know how he did it, but he did it all the time, more often than not. And so we had a lot of Pinot planted and ready to come online when all of this happened. He just was this amazing visionary and nailed it all the time. And the interesting thing is that that movie took place mostly down in Santa Barbara County, and about 35% of the grapes that go into our Pinot Noir come from that county. So that was a nice little surprise for us there, and I think for everyone, for that matter. And Pinot is just like taken off.
I agree, and I'm glad that you mentioned Jess Jackson. Truly a visionary, and very much an advocate of great farming yields great wines. Responsible farming yields great wines. And so I want to, before we finish up on the tasting of the Pinot Noir, I want to jump back to the family's commitment to sustainability, because I think it's really, really something that along with the Trinchero family, really set the tone for other farming throughout the California wine country. Can you talk a little bit about some of those initiatives and why?
Sure, and we're starting to label many of our wines with the little sustainability seal on the back label. And basically, sustainable farming, sustainable practices are more than just focusing on the little grape and vine itself. It's it's all about energy and solar aspects and wind aspects, but
Right.
you're also
You've
trying.
got both solar and wind, and this wind on the same property there. You've got the windmill in the background and the solar panels in the foreground.
Right, and that's a picture of some of our Bordeaux vineyards up in the Alexander Mountain Estate up in Sonoma County on the Mayacamas mountain range there. But on top of being sustainable, in the vineyard, you're trying to create a good soil, a soil that will be there, for generations to come. Jess was always talking about this future and this vision, 100, 200, 300 years out. And sometimes you go, oh Lord, but he was dead serious and dead spot on correct. And so it's taking care of the land, replenishing the land, making the land even richer than it is today. It's managing your water resources. Water's like gold these days. So, cutting back on your water use, saving water, whether it's to help you or to help your neighbors or just to help everyone, by not using up too much. And then the animals, I mean, the wildlife. So a lot of times people just build a big fence around their whole property, and we have fences around the block so that the animals can meander about, but not necessarily eat the grapes. And there's a picture of an owl box there because owls need a place to live, and then they also help attack some of the little critters that you may not want that like to eat the grapes. So we're trying to create homes for everyone. And then it's also about the people that work for you, the people that work with you, your neighbors, and more importantly, just the community in general. So that is sustainability. It's not very focused on just one little aspect of it all. It's all encompassing. And that's what makes it very, very wonderful and such a wild success.
Absolutely, 100%. And we're going to talk about that more when we talk taste the Cabernet, which is coming up next. But I want to quickly talk about Pinot Noir. Characteristically, you're looking for typically red fruits, red cherries. The big thing about Pinot Noir when it comes to red wines is this silkiness, right? Because once you get to red wine, you have something that comes from the skins. Two things. One is the color, because usually for most fine wine grapes, the juice of those grapes is clear. And so you have to soak the juice with the skins to get color pigment in the wine. In the same process, you're also getting other good stuff from the skins. If it's been farmed correctly, it's all good stuff. And that includes what we call tannic acid or tannin. And that might be that little grippy texture or sensation that you get from red wines that you don't typically get on whites. With Pinot Noir, because the skins are thinner and the handling is gentler, you're getting more silky, satiny tannins as opposed to the ones that grip the palate a little bit more. That can guide the pairing. And so for me, guys, you tell me if you agree, but I match texture with texture. So my favorite pairing with Pinot Noir is salmon, because if you cook it correctly, it's got this gorgeous gossamer texture that's tender but still toothsome. So it's a fish that can go with the red. What do you think?
I totally agree. Actually, probably 35 years ago, I was up at a restaurant in Washington and ordered some wild salmon. And being a Chardonnay guy, well, I'll have some Chardonnay. And back in the days was white with fish and blah blah blah. And I'm trying to eat that and drink the wine, and the sommelier is looking at me and actually started feeling sorry for me, and he came over and I said, oh, this is just not happening. And he suggested a Pinot, and I'm thinking, Pinot, Schmino, what does this guy know? And then lo and behold, I try it, and it was like an epiphany. It was perfect because there was a little, some nice acid in the Pinot that helped cut the oils and this rich, it's like Copper River run salmon or what have you. It was an amazing moment. It was great.
Yep, 100%. So Glenn, there's such a neat food program with Trinchero, and one of the big programs is a burger competition. Have you ever had a burger, an iteration on the hamburger that you like with Pinot Noir?
Boy, I think there's been a lot of great hamburgers that come out of the Build a Better Burger contest. But yeah, I think a nice ahi burger would go well with Pinot Noir.
Oh, ahi burger. Maybe throw just like a little bit of bacon on there, unless you want to keep it fish. Ooh, that is a stroke of genius. I knew if I asked you the question, you would have the answer. What a great idea! That is
Yeah.
amazing. All right, so we're going to move on to Cabernet Sauvignon. And Glenn, this is the Trinity Oaks, and when it comes to Cabernet Sauvignon, we're back to again really one of the hallmark grape varieties for California wine country. There is no doubt about it that we make great Pinot Noir. But what really put us on the map in the early days with the Vintners Reserve Chardonnay and the 1976 tasting we talked about was these two grapes, the Chardonnay for white, the Cabernet for red. So what is it about California Cabernet Sauvignon that people should really kind of look for in the glass and kind of hang their hat on? What are we bringing to the Cabernet firmament?
Well, I think from my standpoint, if you talk about classic Cabernet, all the best things are happening in California. So you're always looking for that black cherry, the green olive, some of those herbal notes, and then you're painting in a little bit of the vanilla and the toasted oak, and then always, approachable, supple tannins that are appreciated by a novice, but also an expert can appreciate them as well. And so I think that's what we have in the Trinity Oaks offering.
It's you've described this the Cabernet approach to me, and I love the herbaceous. Yes, it's got that vivid dark cherry, almost takes it into dark plum, dark blackberry for me, which is very much what I associate with California Cabernet. But you mentioned the olive, and I thought, yeah, that's right. There's this savory element that comes in that makes it very complex and very distinct for sure from Pinot Noir, which is much more pretty and perfumey. This is much more lusty and it's demanding some attention and has a lot going on that each time you go back to the glass, you have to sort of pay attention. And so in light of that, I actually pulled some olives out of the refrigerator. I had these great, not too briny black olives, and I was like, I'm going to try this. It's really not going to work because I figured briny is going to overpower the wine. It's an amazing combination. Have you ever done anything olivey as a pairing with this wine?
Not recently, but I do. I agree with you. It is a great pairing, and I love it. With once again, if you take some of those things we were talking about earlier, a cheese and some olives, and complement it with some nuts, I think it holds up very, very well.
I think that's a great way to put it. I actually also pulled out one of my favorite cheeses for any wine, but especially for Napa Cabernet, which is Spanish Manchego. I know we're talking about California wines and we're talking to our Canadian neighbors, but if you want to have the go-to cheese that goes with every wine, it's the Spanish Manchego, and it's really delicious with Cabernet Sauvignon. And if you think about it, if you've got olives and maybe some fresh herbs and a little cheese in the fridge and you can boil up some pasta, you can have a vegetarian big California Cabernet pairing without ever having to deal with, pull out a steak or fire up the grill or anything like that. So I love that. Let's go back to the topic of sustainability, because it's something that makes me so proud of my longtime friendship with both the Jackson family and the Trinchero family. And, literally like my kids grew up with, their kids, and it's a very special thing, but the history goes back quite a way to Mario, just a bit post-prohibition here. And Randy, you were talking about sustainability being a big full circle thing and being very much connected to the community and caring about the community. Glenn, can you talk about specifically the sustainability initiative associated with this Trinity Oaks Cabernet and all the Trinity Oaks wines?
So I think there's a couple things. Is first of all, there's the farming and the growing part of it, which all our vineyards are 100% sustainably certified, and then you follow it up with some of the part that carries the wine, which is the package. And so we've got custom lightweight bottles, we've got recyclable closures, we've got labels that are actually made from 100% post-consumer waste paper, and then all of our promotional materials are like that. And then our shippers are the same way. and they're bleach free. And then the capsules, which everybody, you don't really think about it, but actually the capsule for Trinity Oaks is actually made of PLA, so it's polylactic acid. So it's actually carbon neutral, and then it actually is compostable. So you throw it in with your yard waste. And then I think the next part of it, which is really what I consider the Trinity Oaks difference, is our partnership with a nonprofit, which is Trees for the Future. And Trinity Oaks has planted one tree for every bottle sold since 2008. So if you think about that impact, in the last 13 years, we've actually planted 23.8 million trees. That's a lot of trees. And I think the program is phenomenal. I think that the Trees for the Future program utilizes what's called the forest garden approach. So it's an example of agroforestry, which actually incorporates trees that protect and improve the soil through sustainable farming practices. And so there's a lot of really positive things. And so if you think about this forest garden approach, is that you're actually, you have a combination of trees, shrubs, fruits, vegetables, grains, and they're strategically planted to support one another, the land and the farmers. And so you're creating an economic opportunity to an impoverished family. So for me personally, this is the heartfelt part of what we're doing with Trinity Oaks is that, hey, we're kind of paying this whole thing forward. If you think about it, is that I get to do what I love to do, which is make sustainable wine. You know, an LCBO customer actually gets to purchase that wine. But the fact of the matter is that, and you talk about sustainability, is that we actually pay that forward by creating a global opportunity for an impoverished family. And then you actually put on top of that, well, when you're planting a tree, what are you doing? You're capturing carbon. So you're actually reducing the greenhouse gas effects. So a lot of great things, simple message for me, but it's one that I'm very passionate about. And that's the part that I love the most about Trinity Oaks is that it's got a far-reaching note or message that I just love.
I adore that, and it's very much it makes the wine country community more and more broad-reaching and global. And when we treat our community as the globe, that's a really good idea for a lot of reasons. Yep. We take care of each other as a result of that. So I think that's super cool. We have a question from Autumn. Thank you for tuning in, first of all. She says, do you have any advice for new wine drinkers? I'm going to tackle this one real quick and just say that my advice, and it's always been this way about wine, is that it doesn't have to be expensive to be good. And I think we've sometimes believed that if you buy a reasonably priced wine, well, it must be less good than the wine that's twice the price. That's not the case. And it's a lot harder for winemakers like Randy and Glenn to make large quantities such that the price can be affordable of excellent wine than it is to make a couple barrels and charge, some crazy win the lottery price. So you have come to the right place, Autumn, in the sense of checking out this selection of wines. And I'm into the Cabernet, and these wines are evolving. They're showing interesting character. And so if you give yourself license with your friends and loved ones to do a little comparing and select carefully, this curated selection is a really good way to start. If you give yourself a chance to just taste compare the wines, you'll start to learn characteristics that you like and ways to describe them. So the next time you're in a store or a restaurant, you can ask for that. But you can also know, okay, I know I like crisp, clean, refreshing wines like Pinot Grigio. What else is out there, right? And you can expand your horizons that way. That's a great place to start. And you're obviously in a great spot doing this with us because you get to learn from the winemakers and get firsthand information. Anybody, either of you have any advice to add to that?
I would say just kind of go with the flow with what we're offering today. Start with your light crisp whites and roll into your richer Chardonnays and then your light to rich Pinots and keep on going up. And don't start with a Cab or a Zin. that might shock your palate. So just kind of go easy and work your way up and see what you like.
Work your way into it. Well said. And Glenn, I know you're both sides, both of your companies do so much with hospitality. So I will just say, should people come to California wine country if they're a new wine drinker? Will they feel comfortable?
Yeah, I think there's definitely great opportunities either in Sonoma and or Napa to for a novice wine drinker to enjoy the experience, and I think it's a great experience from my standpoint. You learn about obviously some of the soil differences. You learn about the vine differences, and you're able to actually you go to a good tasting experience. Get somebody who's very educated, such as an Andrea, to be able to talk to you about how wines differ in styles and taste you through the wines. And I find that when I was initially kind of getting into this is that you taste with somebody who actually is experienced at it, and all of a sudden all those nuances that you read about become very vivid to you. They really do jump out of the glass, and you go, that's what they're talking about. And that's the exciting part for me is educating really the next generation of wine consumers is that, hey, let's talk about what I smell. And you can leverage my 35 plus years of experience to kind of help you learn about wines. And I'm still learning as we speak. So that's the fun part about wine and winemaking.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it. And it's true. I think with California wine country, there's really, and every winemaker I talk to from any other country that makes wine in the world talks about that, the California wine visitor experience. If you want to learn and you want to be taken care of and get great hospitality, but really learn, you can't touch it. And I think, Randy, you would agree that the hospitality tasting rooms, there's always going to be somebody there who's educated, who's going to make you feel comfortable. Am I right?
Oh, absolutely, guaranteed, unequivocally, yes. And we invite everyone to come visit our two wineries and all our neighbors, and you'll have a great time. And it's a beautiful spot too, very sunny and warm and gorgeous. It's the
Yeah.
Provence of America here.
Yeah. Exactly. Pretty much hard to go wrong on every front. Every sense that you have, from sight to smell to just the sense of needing to relax and be taken care of, will be catered to for sure when you visit. We have another question which I'll get to in a second, but let's jump to the next wine. It's the Josh Cellars Legacy Red Blend, and where the cool thing about this category is it kind of followed on the heels of Pinot Noir as being a really hot category in terms of a style of wine where you're taking maybe untraditional grape blends. It's very common in some of the classic regions of the world to blend a lot of grapes, but they tend to be local and indigenous to one spot. Here in California, so many of the classic wine grapes grow really well, and this has given winemakers the ability to put together untraditional blends. So this one is a blend of Shiraz, Merlot, Zinfandel, and Petite Syrah. And so you're going to get spice from Petite Syrah and Shiraz. You're going to get flesh and exoticism from the Zinfandel, and you're going to get smoothness and roundness from Merlot. And so while I'm and a lot of red fruit, but also a lot of dark fruit. So, right, just like we were talking about with the white wines, your lean and tangy crisp fruits like your cranberries and your red cherries, or your lush, ripe and exotic fruits like your blueberries, blackberries, figs, and everything in between. When you've got a red blend, it's kind of like the world is your oyster. You can play with this. And I want to start with you, Randy, and just ask you, talk about the red blend category and what it means to you. Is it a fun little playground, or how do you look at it?
Oh no, it really is, and it's an area that was just sort of getting going maybe 10 years ago, and not only is it fun for winemakers to make these wonderful blends, it's fun for the consumer to try them and enjoy them. And so, as you're saying, with you throw with your Merlot, you get your chocolate tones with the Zin, the white peppers, and then the Syrahs, the dark jam and complexing fruit there, and ripe fruit, and you can go any way you want. You can sort of head off in the Bordeaux world. You can head off in the sort of Syrah-y mode there, or you can put it all together. But they're all wonderful blends, and they usually tend to be a little bit softer on the palate than, say, a
Yes.
hardcore cab or what have you. And that makes them a lot of fun also. And there are no rules. We love it when there are no rules.
Yeah, for sure. And you get so you get the body of like a lusty red wine, a fuller red wine like Cabernet. At your point, you get that softer tannin, so it's not something that you have to get used to, right? It brings you right in. And you're talking about like all the different components and characteristics, and it made me think of when I was growing up, there was one type of tomato in the store, and it was beefsteak tomato or maybe the Roma. And now with heirlooms and that, there's like 10 or 12. And I know that Kendall Jackson has been famous for its gardens and especially the heirloom tomatoes.
There are hundreds.
Yeah, right. And as I'm tasting this, I'm thinking, I want some of those really lusty heirloom tomatoes with like some basil and some olive oil. I don't need a big Cabernet. Have you ever tried a combination like that?
Oh, I have. And this is funny issue because the color of the tomato goes well with the color of the wine, if I'm trying to say this
Right.
correctly. So your sort of greenish tomatoes go with your Sauvignon Blancs or Pinot Gris. Your yellow maybe with some red streaks and gold go with your Chardonnays. And then you get into the more reddish area, maybe with Merlot. And then you have these tomatoes that are purple and huge, and they're with like Syrahs or what have you. And then you get into purple black. And they went on and these are all going good with tomatoes. You think, really? But it's true. It really works that way. And so the darker the tomato, the darker the wine. It's an amazing experience to try.
Wow. Okay. So tomatoes are going to start to hit around end of July, and they will last into October here in wine country. So you have all the time in the world to get over here and try this out. You're going to love it. Now, Glenn, the other thing I was thinking of with this was, and further to the tomatoes, but just like a really, really flavorful olive oil and little finishing salt on those tomatoes would be sort of right up my alley. And I actually have a bottle of the Trinchero Family olive oil here. So that's what I'm thinking of. But any great pairings for a red blend type like this?
Yeah, I love the red blends. I think from a winemaker, they're your friend. But for me, I'm a rib guy, so I can do some ribs with a red blend. Kind of as I love the Zinfandel based red blends, and those two for me, they just go together perfectly.
Oh, that's fantastic! Absolutely. My husband and you would be kibbutzing over the ribs for sure. I don't know how many different green eggs we have, but there was a big and there was a medium and there with lots of different things. But yeah, ribs, I'm all over that with the red blends. That makes a ton of sense. You talked about Zinfandel, and it's a great segue into our final wine, which is the Gnarly Head Old Vine Zin. Now, Zinfandel is a grape that has a long history. Pre-Prohibition, late 1800s plantings, mid 1800s plantings in California. And it turns out that it is definitely a European descent grape. I don't know if you guys are in the Zerlianats Castellansky family or what, but we know it's come from either Czech Republic or Italy or some combination of those two. But our version of it, especially with the old vines, is really special. Very, very dark black fruits, lots of spice, almost like compoted fruit. Like if you're having the greatest, your grandmother's best blackberry jam from the wild blackberries out back, or boysenberries. But let's talk about Old Vine. Both of you have a major pedigree when it comes to vinifying Old Vine Zinfandel. So Randy, I'm going to start with you. Why do we care about old vines other than it's cool to have stuff that's preserved from the past?
Yeah, well, not only is it cool, it's historical, and all these old vine Zin vineyards should actually be national historic sites. Unfortunately, the yields tend to go down, and people want to rip them out. But those in the know who understand that that they're really, really good save them. And they were originally planted by a lot of effectively Italian immigrants that came over from Europe and came in through the San Francisco Bay Area and went up into Mendocino County, actually the Russian River area, over into the Lodi area, and many of them planted these vineyards on the best soils, the best sites, but just, they're dry farms. They're like little bonsai plants, but 3 feet tall or 4 feet tall, and they've been around for 60, 80, 100, sometimes 120 years old. And so no irrigation, just their own little roots, deep roots, by the way, going down that can survive these droughts we tend to always have these days. But they make the most concentrated wines and with the spice and the white pepper and sometimes some raspberry and strawberry tones thrown in for good measure, and the tannins seem to be quite nice too. Sometimes they're a little bit higher in concentration than some wines, but it's something that's kind of like the all-American grape or all-California grape now, but it did emanate from Italy, and you mentioned, I think, from the Czech area, came across that little ocean to Italy and then over to here. So there's a tremendous amount of history, for sure, with Zinfandel.
Fantastic. It's so true. And it's a very, as you said, connected to the California history. Glenn, Trinchero family has some heirloom plots of Zinfandel where close to where originally gold was discovered. And at least the lore is that when they ran out of, or ran dry on any more gold deposits, they said, well, we've got to figure out a way to make a living, so let's farm this land, and planted some Zinfandel that you're still farming. Is that right?
That is absolutely true. So yeah, we have one of our wines, which is the Deaver, which is 135-year-old vines. We still make wine off that particular plot, and so like Randy said, it is a true antique and a piece of California history that it's truly amazing. And you think about it and what went on 135 years ago and the decisions that are made, and they're still actually, you go to the vineyard and you're going, wow, the fruit is so concentrated. It's just a very unique part of California, and we're just very pleased to be, the bearers of being able to continue to nurture this thing along and make wine out of it, because it is very unique wine. And all the things that you talk about, the concentration, this particular vineyard, a lot of licorice, a lot of anise with that brambly fruits. But the thing that I like the most about it is it carries great acidity. So it has a leanness to it that I really like. So yeah, we have kind of a unique place in California when it comes to Zinfandel, and we have a nice offering up in our Amador corridor.
So you get great balance because the acidity is really it's kind of the nerve center or the thread that runs through all the rest of the aspects of the wine that allow the complexity to pop. And I love to point out to people that a lot of times, almost every condiment that we use on the table, short of salt and pepper, is acidic, right? And we're using our mustard on our hot dog or the pickles and tomatoes on our hamburger, not to make them taste mustardy or pickly, but we're using the acid to pop the flavors of everything else that's there. So wine serves that purpose with the food, which is why they're a natural match, a match made in heaven. I want to talk about food with Zinfandel, and I'm going to go back to you, Glenn, because what we do with what great old vine California's in is we love to pair it with, and we don't eat this that often, but when we do, it's so much fun, bacon and blue cheese burgers. What do you say?
I'm all over that. It is a great pairing. I will admit, I have a soft spot for blue cheese and bacon. You can put it on anything and it'll be fine, but just alone, it's great.
Yeah. There's something about the lustiness of the fruit. It's a little bit dusky. It's a little bit wild. And I think with blue cheese, it's because of the mold, it has a little bit of like a funkiness to it. Randy, any particular favorites with Old Vines Inn?
Gosh, I think, well, too, I mean, the truly old vine, well-crafted Zin is just so soft and lush, you can just drink it all by itself. But then again, if you're going to, pair it with something, I always tend to lean towards the outdoor barbecue, and something like barbecue ribs or something along those lines with the barbecue sauce. And those two tend to do it for me.
That's a great point because barbecue sauce can be hard, but the Old Vine Zin has such juicy, almost compoted fruit that it can handle the sweetness in barbecue sauce. And then, of course, it's got the bulk to handle whatever the barbecue sauce is slathered on. So that's totally a perfect selection. I will also tell people if you're a fan of very dark chocolate, like 80% cacao or higher, totally give it a go, give it a try. It'll be like the warm flourless chocolate cake with the berry coulis, but without all that sugar, right? And no fat except for the little bit in the chocolate. So give that a try. We're going to answer a couple questions as we wrap up. Cassie is asking for a white wine recommendation if you love Cabernet Sauvignon. And I think you want to be going for something, therefore, that has a fairly full body. But Randy, what do you say?
So you mean like if you're going to have a red or a cab on your table,
If
white?
someone loves Cabernet, what's a white that they might also like, that would maybe
Besides
meet
Chardonnay.
their... No, I don't think so. I think if you're saying, I would totally go barrel fermented Chardonnay for the Cabernet lover
Yeah.
because I want to match the body. But what do you think?
And, well, I'm totally in agreement with that. And I think, there's some great areas. There's all kinds of wonderful areas along the coast of California. But what's really cool is like the Carneros area, certain spots there, and the Santa Maria bench down in Santa Barbara County for Chardonnay. You get that little oily characteristic that really fills out that palate with everything else that you're going to do. And so, the fun thing about that is take a Chardonnay from either of those places with your Cabernet, go to a steakhouse, and people are going to laugh at you saying, "What'd you bring this Chardonnay for to a steakhouse?" And you say, "Well, you know what? Why don't you just try this and see?" And
Yeah.
all of a sudden, a smile will come across. Say, "Oh my God, that's fantastic!"
100% true, especially like if you decide to get the side of sauteed mushrooms. The Chardonnay just does such a nice dance with buttery mushrooms. So I'm with you. Great barrel fermented California Chardonnay is really great with steak, and so people should feel totally fearless to do that and not have the food police come and book them.
Sometimes we say, that the Chardonnays, those wonderful rich ones, can be like a liquid meal too.
Yes, indeed. That's right. Just add a little popcorn and you've got your whole grains and you're good to go. So Autumn is
Exactly.
asking, how long does it take from seed to harvest in when you're bottling your wine? And have you faced any challenges from climate change? With the time that we have, I'm going to just say a couple things, Autumn. These are basically, our vines are essentially perennial. So we don't have to plant seeds. They are perennial crops that will properly farmed yield a crop every year. But from the time of bud break, and then to harvest, and then to bottling, very much depends on the wine, because a fresh unoaked wine like the Pinot Grigio might be harvested in August or September, and it might be bottled before Christmas time. And whereas, like Randy, you can tell me if you harvest in September, October, when would you be bottling the Kendall Jackson Vintners Reserve?
Oh, not until June at the earliest. More like July, August, September is the ideal time. So actually, in the middle of the next harvest.
Exactly. And Autumn, to your point, or to your question, therefore, it's a constant cycle. While wines are in a tank or in a barrel, aging and developing in the winery from the prior harvest, the next ones are coming online. So I don't know how these men sleep at night, because they are constantly juggling what's where and all that stuff, and still making it taste good in the end, because at every stage of the game, flavor and texture are impacted. I loved your question. You asked, have you faced any challenges from climate change? And I know that we all have. I think it's more the extreme weather events than anything, because we still have our beautiful cool nights here. and our wonderful wine country growing conditions. And both of these families, given their commitment to sustainability, are keeping the vines really healthy. So it's not such a big deal for us here on the coast of California. Either of you have any additional points on that?
No, I think we're pretty consistent, going year into year out. I mean, obviously, if you look at pictures of Alaska and you look at the glaciers, they're receding because their world is getting warmer. But you'll note, we have our little peaks. Sometimes we'll have like 4 or 5 hot spells that we normally would only get 1 or 2. But those are annual variations. But over the long haul, it is getting a little warmer. And you'll notice that people are starting to plant vineyards closer to the ocean or higher up in elevation where it gets cooler. So everyone is adapting to the change.
Yes, and doing things like changing how they actually train and trellis the vines to provide the shade or to provide the airflow and things that the grapes need, so that they basically still come into the winery balanced in the beautiful way that California can achieve. Last question, Glenn. What was the wine made out of 135-year-old Zinfandel vines? Can you tell us the name of that Zinfandel?
So it's Terra d'Oro, Deaver Zinfandel.
Terra d'Oro. So if LCBO doesn't have it, then you can always send them a note on the website and see if
Absolutely.
they would. But it's a tiny production wine. But there's other Terra d'Oros that are younger vines that there's a little more production of. And then when you get to California, you'll be able to have that one if you can't find it at the LCBO. But thank you so much to my wonderful panelists. I really wish we were in the same room together, but we will be soon. I'm confident. We will all be so excited to have you join us here in California wine country. We're thrilled that you tuned in tonight. I just want to remind you about the Second Harvest fundraiser. If you are going to purchase one of those picnic baskets, every one you purchase $5 to Second Harvest, compliments of California wines. And of course, that box, it's going, gone. There's 6 great wines. We've talked about them all tonight. You'll be able to look at this recording and see, remind yourself of what we covered. But thank you so much, Glenn and Randy. It's been great. And all of you, you grace us with your presence. You honor us. Just as soon as you can get here, we're ready to see you in person. And it's our great love and honor to be your neighbors in wine country here.
Absolutely.
Cheers.
Salute.
Cheers.
Cheers.